Hey, what's up everyone? This is Eli from Trapcode.com here with an After Effects tutorial on everyone's second favorite day of the week, Effects Friday. And today I have an awesome tutorial for you. It's this organic form, weird particle thing. It's really awesome. It is based off of a tutorial that has been requested a lot because the people that did the original tutorial did a terrible job at explaining it. So yeah, I decided to do it today and put my own spin on it. So I'll put a link to the original tutorial in the description if you guys want to check it out. But trust me, it's pretty confusing. If you guys could give this video a like, that'd be awesome because it helps out a lot. And I'm giving away all this stuff for free at checkit.com/downloads. And also, if you could leave a comment, I usually put my favorite comments at the end of every video. So you could have a big chance of getting to my favorite comments at the end if you leave a comment. So let's get to the tutorial now, I guess. Goodness. Alright, so open up After Effects. Oh yeah, and this is what I'm giving you guys. I'll just hit Command S or Control S just to save it quick. Alright, so I'm going to go New, well, File, New, Project. Now I'm going to create a new composition by clicking this button. 1920 by 1080, 30 frames per second, 6 seconds is fine, and we'll just call this Main. And now let's create a new solid just by hitting Control or Command Y. And we'll name it, let's just name this Form. Okay. And then let's go up to the composition right here and go New Composition. We'll make a new composition and call it Transy. I'm not going to explain that. Alright, I'm going to hit OK. And now in this one, we're going to hit Control or Command Y again. And with this time, we're going to make a white solid. Alright, doesn't need to be named, but I guess you could just call it Transy if you really want. Okay. Now we're going to go over to the effects and presets. And we're going to type in rough for roughen edges. And what we want to do is just create some nice rough edges around here, and we want them to be kind of large because this is going to give it that organic look. So the larger and more sharp it is, maybe just to make it easy on you guys, let's make it 390 for the border. Let's make scale 80. And the only other thing we want to mess with is the edge sharpness, so let's put it to 1.70 and the complexity at 8. And that should be fine. So now what we want to do is zoom out using the scroll wheel. We'll click on Transy. We'll go up to the Marquee tools up here, and we actually want the rectangle tool. And now we'll just create a nice mask over on the left side of this. And you need to make sure that you have the Transy layer selected. And then you can bring down the mask properties. Make sure our timeline indicator is all the way to the left. And we want to click the keyframe for mask path, and then the mask feather, let's just turn it up to like 100. Doesn't need to be too crazy. Alright, and what we want to do is we want to animate this mask. So let's go back to our selector tool here, and let's just animate it. So let's bring the timeline indicator to around 2 seconds. Select the mask, click off of it, and then bring it all the way to the right. Now we'll go to around 4 seconds. We'll click off of it and just animate it once again, just closing that off. And now we have a very basic animation. See that? Pretty easy. Okay, so now what we can do is go back to our main comp, go up to our project, and you'll see the Transy layers right here, the Transy comp, and we'll drag that right below form. Then we'll turn off the Transy layer, click on form, go over to our effects and presets, and we just want to search for something called Trapcode form. So let's just type in form. We're going to need to scroll down to find form. There it is. Alright, let's click and drag it onto the form layer. And this is where the tutorial gets kind of interesting. You guys are going to need to pay very close attention here, alright? So let's start with the base form. And we want to change the base form from grid to strings. And then in the size X, we want to change it from 200 to something around 2000. Let's just start with 1800. We can always change this when we go back. We actually want it to reach the edge here, so let's go to like 2100. That's good. Alright, size Y, let's size it in half to 100 and leave size Z at 200. Alright, strings in Y, we want to bring that way down. Let's bring it to something like 6. Strings in Z we can leave at 3. And then we want to go to the string settings. Density we want to move up to 100. Size random we want to bring up to 40. And then we'll leave everything else except for the taper opacity. We want to make it linear. Next is the particles, so let's bring it down. Keep it at sphere. Sphere feather we actually want to bring up to 100%. Then the size we'll keep at 1. Size random we'll bring up to 40. Opacity we'll bring down to 2. And that's it for the particle selection. Let's go down to quick maps. And we'll mess with these now. So let's bring down the color map here. And this is actually how your particles are getting their color. So if you want it to be all rainbowy, you can keep it like that. But I like this one a lot. Actually, I did that in the intro, so let's keep it at this one. Alright, this is important. The map opaque, that's opacity, and color over, we need to switch to X. See, it actually gives it the color now. And now for all of these, we want to just leave them the way they are. Now let's get into the layer maps. The first thing we want to mess with is the color in alpha. We just want to make sure that the map over is set to XY. Same with displacement. We don't want to change anything except for the map over to XY. And now comes the important part. So size. We want to change this layer to transy. And then we want to change the map over to, guess what it is? XY, of course. Now the fractal strength, same thing. Transy. XY, and then disperse, we just want to make sure that it's set to XY. Next, we want to go to disperse and twist and change disperse from 0 to 25. Now we'll bring down the fractal field, and this is where you really need to pay attention. Okay, so effect size needs to be 10. I'm going to hit tab, and that just skips to the next field. Effect opacity needs to be at 2. Tab. Displace needs to be at 200. Flow X needs to be 50. Flow Y needs to be 12. Flow Z needs to be 42. The flow evolution needs to be at 30. And the offset evolution can be left at 0, but we want to make sure we check flow loop and leave it at 5. And everything else is blank, or just how it normally is. Next, we want to bring down the kaleidoscope option here. We want to do the mirror mode at vertically. The behavior needs to be set to mirror everything. And there's our center, so that's good. And now, if we go to about 2-second mark when our entire project is in the middle, check that out. Look how cool that looks, guys. But it's still not as interesting as that intro. Here's what we need to do. Select form, and we're going to hit Controller-Command-D to duplicate it. And now we're going to call this one Form BG, and we'll send it to the back, and we'll hit T to bring down the opacity. So let's bring it down to 5%. And now, actually, I'm going to switch this to half just because it's really being processor intensive now. And now what we want to do is we want to go to the top, and we just want to change up some of these settings. We'll start with the size random. We'll turn that up, and maybe turn up the density a little bit. And then we'll scroll down and we'll mess with the size random, turn that all the way to 100% on this one, and we'll change the color of this one to the blue color. And actually, we can make this one green if you want. Next, what we want to do is we want to hit S and scale it up. Keep going until the entire project is behind it. Alright, let's go back up and just mess with this a little bit. Maybe bring up the size Y here. Bring up the part or the strings in Y. Well, that's looking intense. I'm not sure if I'm feeling the green, so maybe change it to the pinkish colors. Bah humbug, that doesn't look that good. Maybe blue again. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We want to add some bulk to these, so let's go over to the effects and presets and type in glow. Scroll down. There it is, stylized glow. We'll start putting it on form, and we'll leave the glow threshold at 60. Glow radius, we want to turn it up to around 190. And the glow intensity maybe down to 0.3. And with that, the glow looks a million times better. Now let's copy the glow by going Controller-Command-C and paste it on the form BG. And that'll just add a lot of depth to the back. Alright, that looks pretty awesome. So now we could always just add a little more depth to it. So let's type in particular over here, and you'll notice that I have these user presets right here. I'm actually just going to use those because this tutorial is going to be too long, but I guess if you guys download this project, you guys can just use my awesome particles preset here. So I'm going to type in a new solid. Let's do particles. We need to make sure that it's set to black. Okay. And now we'll just drag the awesome particles onto the particles layer right here. And you can always mess with this if you'd like. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste the glow onto that as well. So I just went Controller Command V since we already had it copied, just so it looks a little better. Maybe turn up the intensity to 0.5. Alright, so now let's move on to actually turning off most of these layers, like the form BG as well. And now what we want to do is we want to find where our animation opens, so we can find where our logo will be revealed. Let's see, it opens right about here probably. Yep, right around here. So we'll go over to our project, we'll double click in this area, and I'm just going to find this After Effects logo I created in Photoshop Quick. You guys can always use your company logo, I would highly recommend that. And if you use a Photoshop layer, you want to make sure it's in a new composition. Now we'll drag and drop this behind the form, but in front of the form BG. And now let's hit S and just scale it down to the size we would like it to be. Alright, that looks like a pretty good size to me. We want to go up to this rectangular marquee tool again, and we'll change it from rectangle tool by clicking and holding, and change it to the ellipse tool. And now we'll click right about here, and we'll hit shift and just make it a perfect circle right in the middle of it. Alright, cool. We want to bring down the mask settings right here, and we want to make sure that we toggle on the mask path, and we also want to turn up the feather to where it gets a pretty good feather. It doesn't have to be too big. Maybe we'll just make it a nice 100 pixel feather. Go up to our selection tool. You can always just hit V if you would like. We want to double click on the mask and just scale it down by holding down Control and Shift and just make it super small. Now we'll go forward, and now we'll double click on this mask once again and just size it up by hitting Control and Shift once again. And we'll just make sure that it goes all the way out like that. And now we just want to mess with this mask until we get the right timing that we like. So this actually looks like I timed it pretty well. See how the edge of the particles is opening just right alongside of it? That looks awesome. Okay, so I actually did that really well on my first try, but you can always just move this side to side if you'd like to get the timing better. And now what we can do is we can add some other effects just to make it look more organic and part of this. So let's go over to our effects and presets and first start with a blur. So let's type in blur. Let's just grab a nice, easy, fast blur, drag it on top of the AE logo, turn it up to like 60, and now we'll drag it to the front, and we'll toggle a keyframe here, drag it out. Let's make it right about here, cool, and then let's bring it down to 0. And then we'll go over to our effects and presets and type in turb for turbulent displacement. We'll drag and drop that onto the AE logo, and we can just leave it right about there, and we'll drag it to where our keyframes start, and we'll set a keyframe on the amount. Just drag it out right about here and then hit 0, and then I'll just make another keyframe. And now you'll see that really coming together and looking like something cool. Now what we can do is mess with the opacity. So let's make sure we have AE logo selected, hit T, and then we'll set a keyframe to where it's really small over here, and we'll just bring it down to 0. And then when it's starting to size up, actually let's drag that over just a couple, just so it's right when the animation is starting to come up. We'll have it come 100% opacity a little early so you can still notice some of the animation here. Yeah, there we go. Now let's drag the work area over, just so we can pre-render this. Let's just drag it right about there, hit 0, and let it pre-render so we can see the animation that we just created. I actually want that to last a little longer, that's what she said. So I'm gonna bring down all of the keyframes I just did. So let's bring down the fast blur and the turbulent displacement. And now let's just mess with the timing of these until we get something that we really like.
Make some bass.
Alright, so now that we have our basic animation done, what we want to do is scroll up, close all that by just clicking on that arrow, and now we'll duplicate this AE logo by going Control D. Drag this one below, and we'll just rename this so we remember what it is. AE logo BG. We're just gonna scale it way up. So let's go over here, just hit S. Just make it massive. Cause we like 'em massive, right ladies? Oh, that joke. I don't know why you guys laugh so hard at that. You guys are so weird. Alright. So let's actually bring down the opacity. So hit T, bring it down to 5%. Cool, let's put some blur on this. Let's type in blur over here. Yes, I know that it already has a blur, but I want a camera lens blur on it, not fast blur. 5 pixels is pretty good. We'll just leave it at that. We are pretty much done except for flares. So let's create 3 new flares. Hit Control or Command Y. Let's name this one Flare. Make it black. Make sure it's at black. Okay, cool. And now let's type in flare over here. Optical flares. Drag it on top. Alright, let's set the render mode to transparent. Set the mode over here to add. If you don't have this up, you can hit F4. And then I'll just bring up your transfer modes there. And what we want to do is click on it and put it right in the middle. And we want to get this really accurate. So let's make it 960 by 540. Perfect. And let's actually bring this over a little bit because we want to keyframe the brightness. So we'll make the brightness 0. Then when everything happens, it'll go up to 100%. Actually, way more than that, like 600. And then it'll slowly fade off. Right about here, probably. Down to 0. Let's bring down these. And just see how it looks. Let's hit 0. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now let's just change this flare because it's disgusting right now. So let's drag this down. I'm going to try to find a cool looking flare. I'll bring you guys back in a second. Alright, I think I'm feeling Big Bang. So I'm going to hit OK. Whoa. Okay, this one's a little more prominent. So let's bring it down to like 400 at this keyframe. Whoa, still a little more prominent. Let's go down to 200 then. Yeah, that's better. Alright, now let's hit 0 and just check out and see how it looks. Alright, I actually really like how that looks. So now let's mess with the other 2 flares by closing up all of those. Let's duplicate this flare by hitting Control D. Alright, let's select it. Drag it up to the top right. And now let's just go into here. Just delete this brightness. Goodness gracious. But what we do want it to do is, we don't want it to come on until this flare goes on. So we can toggle it from 0 to probably around 80. Yeah, because then that one comes on. Cool. And I'm just going to go find a flare that I like. So I'll bring you guys back in a second. Alright. I already know I'm going to like robot light, so I'm just going to keep that one. Bring it down a little bit. Bring it over. Alright, now I'm just going to toggle the position, XY. Let's just drag it from over here. And it's going to start right there, and then it's going to make its way down. So down and further away there. Alright, so now let's duplicate this flare once again. And for this one, let's delete all of that. Let's bring this, let's zoom out a little bit. Select the flare, bring it down to the bottom left. And now go over to here, just animate it up and further away. So it's doing the opposite. And let's actually change this flare. Let's change it to like anything really. I'm going to stick with greatest right here. Okay. And now I'm just going to add some flicker to both of these. So speed, it doesn't matter. Let's just bring it up. Cool. This one as well. Just flicker. I'll just mess with it down here. I don't care. Cool. Alright, so before we render this, we want to make sure that we turn back on the particles and the form BG. We don't want to turn on the transy layer because that'd be gross. Anyway, the last thing we want to do is we want to right click, go new, camera, and let's just make it a 35mm, default settings, okay. And we're going to bring down the camera options right here, and then we're going to toggle on the zoom, and we're just going to go all the way to the end and just zoom in just until you get the final picture how you like it. But I forgot that we need to make all these 3D, so let's hit F4 to bring up the 3D options. Particles don't need to be 3D. None of these need to be 3D except for the AE logos. And with that, we can go back into our camera settings and just make sure that we get the zoom or the final picture that we want. So, okay, cool. Maybe pretty far zoomed in. And now it'll just have a slight zoom on the entire intro, which is awesome. And with that, guys, I think we are now done. So let's actually render this. Let's hit Controller Command M, or you can go up to Composition and go to Add to Render Queue. I have to do that because I'm recording right now. Let's delete this old one. Let's click on Lossless here. Go down to Windows Media, or just go to H.264. Okay, I'm going to click here, and let's just call it Organic Form Example II, or 2 for Roman numerals, and now we'll hit render. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'm so happy that I was able to teach you guys an awesome tutorial on Effects Friday. Friday. I'm doing my own echoes, but yeah, guys, I have a ton of fun making videos for you guys, so keep requesting videos because I'm going to keep making tutorials for as long as you guys want me to, so make sure that you leave a comment because I leave all my favorite comments at the end of the video. And guys, I'm going to be giving you guys access to both of these project files, both of these intros for free, so please give the video a like. It seriously helps out. And make sure you go download it at checkit.com/downloads. And with that, I will see you guys on Sunday because I'm making a Seductive Sunday 3 tutorials this week. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, anyway guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.